seeking refuge. His island was under the shadow of the rising sun, and he was bringing his most precious cargo to Taratupa. His 3 daughters, the princesses. "It is a feather in our cap," Binghamton shouted to his loyal. "If bumbling, aid Lieutenant Carpenter. Or rather, my cap. We must make an impression. The Admiral will be watching, and I want McHale and his band of pirates as far away from the royal family as possible." Binghamton's plan was simple. Exile the PT-73 to a remote reconnaissance mission at Aku Aku, a deserted strip of sand where the only thing they could offend was the seagulls. However, fate had a different sense of humor. A message crackled over the wireless. The Sultan's plane had developed engine trouble near the island of Samura. The only boat in the vicinity? The PT-73. When the 73 pulled alongside the downed aircraft, the sun was beginning to dip, painting the sky in violent shades of violet and gold. McHale stood on the bow, his eyes squinting against the glare. "Greetings, Your Highness," McHale called out, his voice steady despite the surreal nature of the rescue. "I am Quentin McHale. We're here to take you home." But it wasn't the Sultan who caught the crew's attention. It was Princess Chiri. She stepped onto the deck of the PT boat like a vision from a dream. Her dark hair catching the sea spray, her eyes reflecting a fire that no war could extinguish. For Virgil, the 73's quietest sailor, the world stopped. He had spent months looking at pin-up girls in tattered magazines, but this was life. This was breath. He said, "Wowie, wow, wow," a voice whispered from the back of the crew. The Sultan stiffened, his hand going to the hilt of his ceremonial dagger. "The next man who dares to debase the dignity of the princesses will answer to me." McHale quickly stepped in, his charm working like a lubricant on a rusted gear. "Forgive him, Highness. In our country, that is a ceremonial greeting of high respect. It means the light of your presence is blinding." Siri looked at Virgil, a small, knowing smile tugging at the corners of her lips. In the midst of a global conflict, a private war of the heart had just begun. Chapter 2. The moonlit lagoon and the peanut butter vow. Taratupa transformed at night. The harsh realities of the base, the rusting hulls, the stack of paperwork, the distant thrum of Zero fighters faded into a silver-washed paradise. Binghamton had sequestered the royal family in the best quarters, guarded by stern-faced marines. Virgil, however, was not easily deterred. Love knows no rank, and certainly no military protocols. Under the cover of a tropical downpour that silenced the guards' footsteps, Virgil paddled a small skiff to the edge of the royal gardens. He carried a gift, not gold, not jewels, but a jar of his mother's homemade peanut butter, a luxury more valuable than anything in the Pacific Theater. "Siri?" he whispered into the darkness. The princess emerged from the shadows of a giant banyan tree. "The sailor with the kind eyes," she said, her voice a melody. "You take a great risk. Hey B, my father says the Americans are brave, but also very informal." "I had to see you," Virgil said, his voice trembling. "In Marami, what does Siri mean?" "It means happiness," she replied, stepping closer until he could smell the jasmine in her hair. "Then I'm the richest man on the island," he said, handing her the jar. "It's peanut butter, from Ohio. My mom says it cures a broken heart." As they sat by the edge of the water, the world outside Taratupa ceased to exist. Siri spoke of the weight of her crown, of the arranged marriages that awaited her when the war ended. Virgil spoke of the rolling hills of his home, where the corn grew taller than a man and the only sirens were the cicadas at dusk. Their hands touched, a brief, electric spark that defied the Sultan's laws and Binghamton's regulations. But in the distance, the lights of Binghamton's office burned. The captain was awake, nursing his indigestion and plotting his next move. Chapter 3. The Commander's Lie. While Virgil pursued a royal heart, another romance was brewing on the base, though this one was built on a foundation of spectacular lies. Lester Gruber, the 73's resident scavenger and hustler, had been writing to a girl back home named Ginger. To win her heart, Gruber had exaggerated his rank. In his letters, he wasn't a grease-stained sailor. He was a lieutenant commander, a hero of the high seas. "What am I gonna do, Skip?" Gruber wailed to McHale. "Ginger, she's joined a USO show. She's here, on Taratupa. She thinks I'm a commander. If she sees me in these rags, I'll be living at the YMCA until I'm 80. McHale sighed, looking at his crew of misfits. "Gruber, you're a genius at swiping booze, but a moron at romance." However, McHale couldn't let his man down. Using a borrowed uniform and a few strategically placed crates to hide Gruber's unofficer-like posture, they staged a meeting. End quote, end quote. "Welcome aboard, miss," Parker said, standing at a rigid, if shaky, attention as Ginger arrived. "I believe our commander is currently plotting a secret mission." "Lester," Ginger cried, seeing Gruber in his borrowed finery. "Oh, you look so distinguished. Your letters didn't do you justice." Gruber puffed out his chest, sweating profusely. "Just doing my job, pussycat. You know, sinking subs, dodging zeros. It's a quiet life, really." But the lie was a ticking time bomb. Binghamton was planning a reception for the USO show, and he expected all his actual officers to be present. Gruber was caught between the woman he loved and the firing squad that awaited him if he was caught impersonating a superior officer. Chapter 4: The Laughing Gas and the Ghost Ship. The situation on Taratupa escalated when Admiral Ironpants Rafferty arrived for a surprise inspection. Binghamton, paralyzed by fear and suffering from a stomach that felt like a volcano, decided to feign illness to avoid the Admiral's wrath. "I'll appoint an acting base commander," Binghamton groaned, clutching his pills. "Let McHale handle Rafferty. By the time the Admiral is done, McHale will be a deckhand on a garbage scow." McHale took the command with surprising ease, but the base quickly devolved into a carnival. To keep Binghamton occupied in the hospital, McHale and the crew employed their most devious weapon: nitrous oxide from the dental clinic. Binghamton emerged from his sick bed in a cloud of euphoria. "Everything is so sparkly," he giggled, wandering the base in a seaman's uniform. "Oh, look at the Admiral. He has such lovely iron pants." In the midst of this hilarity, the romance between Virgil and Siri was almost discovered. Lieutenant Carpenter, Binghamton's sycophant aide, had seen the skiff. To protect the secret, McHale pivoted to the supernatural. "The 73 isn't just a boat, Lieutenant," McHale told a terrified Carpenter. "She's the PT-13, the jinxed ship. The ghosts of the drowned crew still haunt the mangroves." Through a series of elaborate pranks, fishing lines, moving equipment, hidden speakers, playing eerie whistles, and floating uniforms, the crew convinced the base that a vengeful spirit was among them. Binghamton, still high on laughing gas, began to talk to the ghosts. "The transfers, Wally." McHale's voice boomed through a megaphone as a figure in a white sheet drifted past the office. "Give us the transfers to protect our souls." Terrified and high, Binghamton signed the very papers McHale needed to clear his crew's records, thinking he was appeasing the spirits of the Pacific. Chapter 5: The Alligator's Testimony. The drama shifted from the ethereal to the reptilian with the arrival of Sydney. Sydney was an alligator of immense size and even greater appetite, who had taken up residence near the PT-73's dock. Parker, whose heart was as large as his brain was small, had started feeding Sydney peanut butter. "He's smiling at me, Skip," Parker insisted. Binghamton, desperate to reclaim his authority after the ghost incident, set a final trap. He planted a wallet filled with $900 of marked bills near the 73's shack, waiting for the crew to find it. But Sydney found it first. When the shore patrol arrived to arrest McHale for theft, the evidence was nowhere to be found. "I'm telling you, the alligator ate the wallet," Parker cried during the court-martial. The court roared with laughter, but McHale didn't blink. He knew the truth. In a scene that would be whispered about for years, the crew hauled Sydney into the courtroom. "The witness is a bit temperamental, Your Honor," McHale said as the alligator hissed at Binghamton. Suddenly, Sydney let out a massive, swampy belch. The wallet, slimy but intact, slid across the floor